To discuss that with us, especially as it concerns the Grazing Reserve Bill, we're joined this morning by Mr. Emeka Etiaba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, part of the ways that some of the lawmakers are thinking that they could bring this to an end is what they proposed, a grazing bill. You've gone through some of those bills, and what do you think of it?
Well, first of all, I'll start by saying that there's this misconception about whether it is Fulani herdsmen or Igbo herdsmen. I choose to believe that herdsmen are destroying our people and our properties. It doesn't matter whether they are Fulani or Hausa or Igbo, and we should leave that debate and go to the main issue, which is lives and property are being destroyed every day in Nigeria. Nothing seems to be happening about it. I must tell you that it is worrisome. When it started, it was like sporadic, but it has quite become a daily occurrence, you know, and it is sad. I also look at the bills that have been proposed, and I sense that intrinsic in them is that entitlement mentality. We are entitled. We are entitled. For example, in Nigeria, it's so easy for somebody to come to borrow money from you, and he says, "Give me money," as if he gave you money to keep for him, you know. And that's what you see playing out. There's a problem in the country. We need to curb it. We need to treat it as crime. And then the bills come up. Yes, a good idea. Let us come up with several ideas, and at the end of the day, we'll settle for the best. But I look at the bills and I say, what makes people think that they are entitled to the deployment of national wealth or commonwealth to people's private business? I don't quite get it. You know, I've looked at it. I've seen areas that we really need to ask questions. My people are predominantly, without creating an impression that is between we and them, my people are predominantly traders. They trade any part of the country. Go to the uttermost part of Borno State. The Igbos are there trading. And when they get there, they pay for their stores, they pay for the land and develop and then do their trading. You know, I don't quite see why the national wealth, commonwealth, should be deployed towards empowering a group of farmers. I don't have a problem if the state decides to do it. I'll give you an example. In Anambra State, the governor in Anambra has actually invested quite a lot in agriculture. He's also brought in investors, many of whom are indigenous of Anambra, because you have Costaris farms and all that in Anambra. They've spent billions of dollars, and these are revenue-yielding ventures. Grazing field bill is good, but I would rather want to see it made at the state level. All the states are broke. They are looking for money. The states should invest money in that which they have comparative advantage. If the northern states or any of the northern states are good in rearing cattle, let the states spend money, bring out the grazing field, and that will happen. And you can't tell me that there are no grazing fields in the north. It's not possible, because much of the rice we eat in Nigeria, they come from the north. So it is possible that these fields can be found there. And when they now spend money, invest in conjunction with businessmen who are ever willing to invest, then you can now make your revenues. You stop running to Abuja for federal allocation and all that. We must adapt our minds to that. I've also looked at the bill and I see the functions of the bills, and I see that some of them are not just realistic. And probably as we go on, we'll look at them. They're not realistic. You know, when you look at them, you feel like these herdsmen are young graduates. You know, they are not. These are people who, even if you build schools build clinics, they will not enter those schools. They will not enter those. So I look at those functions and I know that they are not realistic.
Let's take them one. But which one, if we could go to some of those functions, do you think is not realistic? Because when Honorable Sadiq was here, he did say, well, he means well,
yes,
and that he understands that he can't even force this bill on people, but if they feel the bill is not good enough, well, so be it. But which ones do you think won't just work?
No, I'll look at them seriatim. I'll start from number 1 to the end, so that we can have a holistic appreciation of the functions. Part 2 of the National Grazing Reserve Establishment Bill 2016, the draft, Section 12 says, the Commission is hereby empowered to undertake and make regulations for all or any of the following matters in respect of government grazing reserves. Number 1, establish at least 1 cattle reserve in each of the state of the Federation. So now each state of the Federation will have to play host to a cattle reserve. You've not asked them whether they have the land. You have not asked them whether they have enough land for their own preferred.
He quoted the Constitution. He said that the government hold land in trust for the people.
Yes.
And he says the people for states,
Yes.
of which they themselves too are members of the state. So they are entitled.
Yes. That's that entitlement mentality I talk about. Section 43 of the Constitution says that every Nigerian has the right to own immovable property, which includes land. Section 44 says that you cannot take those lands by force from them, compulsorily. If the state must take it from them, the state must pay compensation, amongst others. So whether the governor is the owner of the land or keeps it in trust for Nigerians, it is subject to some conditions. And again, while I say that the governor has that power, you also talk about the local government, because the local government is in charge of the non-urban lands also, though they also have their own restraint. So talking about the governor owning that land, it is true, but that land is not owned by the governor. He holds it in trust for the people. The land belongs to the people. And the only condition under which you can take that land away from the local owners is for public interest, overriding public interest. That's what the Land Use Act says.
Can that pass as public interest?
That's the debate. I tell you that what is going on now is that some people are elevating the private interest of some farmers to national interest, equating it to national interest, and that cannot be true. It is not true.
You know, after we pushed a little, I mean, we had a rather thorough discussion on this yesterday, and you know, we pushed a little. Considering the fact that some states are constrained, they don't even have the land. I mean, I think it was only yesterday that the Oyo State government was quoted as saying that they don't have land for grazing reserves in their state. You know, and whatever it is anyone wants to impute to that's a different statement, but that's what some states would obviously have that kind of challenge. Take, for instance, Lagos State. I mean, would you think that Lagos State could have land sufficient enough to be designated as a grazing reserve? That will be questionable. But looking at some of those things, he said, okay, maybe not all the states. Maybe some states will be, you know, that have the land will be designated as that, and maybe it will not start all of a sudden. Maybe all the states will not be required to, you know, bring this land now. Maybe gradually, starting from perhaps the northern part of the country. Do you think that kind of suggestion could sit right?
Is it what the bill says? The bill puts it on the part of the commission. The commission shall go searching for suitable land, and when they find it, they will liaise with the governor, who will release the land to them. It is not the prerogative of the governor, that is one. And then number two, all my adult life I lived in Lagos. From the day I went to law school up until October last year, I lived every day of my life in Lagos. And I know that Lagos is a planned state. It's a state that has plans, policies for everything. If you go beyond Aja in Lagos, you find the agricultural lands. Lagos State, of course, allocated those lands based on certain conditions to farmers. If a situation arose and grazing reserve field or grazing field reserve is needed in Lagos, or was needed at that time, and Lagos had the land, I'm sure Lagos would have given, but not under compulsion. It is subject to availability, and it is not supposed to be legislated on. I'll give you an example. The Land Use Act says the governor is, let me use the basic language, the landlord of every land. That's what it is. What the commission is supposed to do, as soon as those lands are given to them, they are supposed to pay compensation. That's what the bill says. Commission will pay compensation, which is in breach of the Land Use Act. The governor is the one that pays compensation. It doesn't matter whether at the point of allocation you paid money, but that cannot be the compensation. Government pays compensation to the indigenes, the owners of the land. And then the commission, one of the functions or their duties is to manage those lands. That is to say, you now have two competing managers. The governor is the manager, because when you're given a land, it is given to you via a certificate of occupancy. If you look at the certificate of occupancy, you see the conditions which the governor gives, and you must meet up with it. So you are not at liberty to use the land, regulate it the way you want. Your interest is still subject to the powers of the governor. This commission, which the act is actually suggesting, is supposed to, as long as they have that land, they're supposed to own it, they're supposed to manage it, alienate it. Land Use Act tells you you cannot alienate without the consent of the governor.
Yeah, but they also use the word shall.
Yes.
In that proposal, that the governor shall. Yes. You know, can you really compel the governor of the state?
The word shall at all times leaves the person without any discretion. Shall is compulsory, must, and you cannot override the provisions of the Constitution. It is not possible. So I believe that if they really want this bill to see the light of the day, they will start by amending the Land Use Act, invariably the Constitution, before they talk about this, because this has a lot of conflicting provisions with the Land Use Act.